What's up, YouTube? This is X79. Guys, today I'm coming to my latest deck profile video for September 2020. And today, guys, we are going to be looking at my updated PK Fire deck. The last TCG ban list pretty much put this deck back on the map with a major power boost. And to be very honest, it was to push the new core booster set Phantom Rage, which comes out the first week of November. Has a lot new, cool, Phantomized stuff that can actually take this deck to even higher amounts. I know a lot of players are testing that new support out and are getting very awesome results. The thing about it is that those builds are for November. We need a build for right now, and that's what I have right here. This deck can still do a lot of what it normally does. Interfere with your opponent's plays, negate, and virtually grind down your opponent to the point where you can actually go in and take them out. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. Now, for those of you who are new to the Burning Abyss archetype, let me give you a rundown of the main deck effect monsters. The main deck effect monsters have two similar effects. The first and foremost is that whenever you don't have any spells and traps on the field, whether it be face up or face down, you can special summon the effect monsters from your hand onto the field. Free bodies in the field in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always a great blessing because it allows you to go into your rank 3 Exceeds plays or your Link plays. Now, the other effect is that if you control a monster that isn't Burning Abyss in name, the main deck effect monsters will destroy themselves and be sent to the graveyard. I know, if you're trying to establish field presence, it isn't a good idea. However, silver lining is that all the effect monsters here have a sent to the graveyard effect. A leak, when it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your opponent's monsters and negate its effect at the end of the turn. Very awesome. Saving this card for discard costs or utilizing it with Beatrice's effect can allow you to interrupt your opponent's plays while setting up your board for other maneuvers. So, very awesome. One copy of Babar. Babar, when it's sent to the graveyard, allows you to banish 3 other Burning Abyss monsters. And from there, you're allowed to hit your opponent for 300 points of damage for each monster banished. Now, you can do 3, or you can go 2, you can go 1. Depends on what you have in your graveyard. But that extra little bit of effective damage can go a long way to help you win the duel. And now that thanks that we have to 2 Seers, you could potentially play around with this card and loop this card repeatedly, turn after turn, to keep hitting for those effect damage, which is actually pretty awesome. And speaking of Seer, whenever it's sent to the graveyard, you're allowed to target a Burning Abyss monster in your graveyard, special summon it back to the field, allowing you to loop various effects and be able to utilize them again. Very cool. Next up, we have 2 copies of Farfa. Farfa, when it's sent to the graveyard, targets one of your opponent's monsters and banish it from the field to the end of the turn, which is great. Getting problematic monsters off the board can allow you to progress your turn a little bit easier and hit your opponent's life points a little bit harder. Two copies of Grav. Whenever Grav is sent to the graveyard, you're special summoning another Burning Abyss monster from your deck right to the field. Again, more bodies on the board means more plays you can make, so always a good thing to have. Next up, we have 2 copies of Libic. Libic, whenever it's sent to the graveyard, allows you to special summon another level 3 Dark Fiend from your hand right to the field, which is just awesome. Again, 3 bodies on the board. Always a good thing. And I want to also point out that Libic, when it summons the monster from your hand, negates that monster's effect. So even if you do bring out a Burning Abyss monster from your hand, its effects will be negated. So if you have a non-Burning Abyss monster on the field, it won't destroy itself. Next up, we have 3 copies of Skarm. Skarm, the Malbranch of the Burning Abyss, is just a great card. Whenever it's sent to the graveyard during the end phase, you get to search your deck for a level 3 Dark Fiend, allowing you to access your other Burning Abyss, and even your tour guides of the underworld to allow you to create plays further than the road. Next up, I like to run 3 copies of Fiendish Rhino Warrior, primarily because of the 2 effects. First, its on-field continuous effect. Basically, it prevents fiend monsters from being destroyed by card effects, which is great. It protects your monsters from being destroyed by board wipes, like Lightning Storm, or even their own effects, like the Mount Branches have. The other thing is that whenever Fiendish Rhino Warrior is sent to the graveyard, it acts as an additional Foolish Burial, allowing you to send another level 3 fiend monster from your deck to your graveyard to get additional effects. Very awesome. And hey, the more cards you can get into your graveyard, the better with this deck, because you can get more effects and be able to do more things. Next up, we have 3 copies of Tour Guide of the Underworld. She is now fully off the list. Whenever you normal summon her, you special summon another level 3 Dark Fiend from your deck right onto the field. Its effects are negated, so you don't have to worry about the Mount Branches destroying themselves. And from there, you build it into your Link or your Xyz plays. Just a word of caution is that make sure you bait out any potential negates before you actually summon her, because she does eat a normal summon and she will turn around and sit there if she's negated. For the Phantom Knights, I am running 1 copy of Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves. Ragged Gloves, whenever it's used as an Xyz material, the Xyz monster gains an additional 1,000 attack, which is actually pretty awesome. Power boosting some of your rank 3s can actually make them pretty powerful. And of course, we have 2 copies of Silent Boots. Now, to be very honest, running this number of Phantom Knights in the deck is, for now, is the best idea, primarily because they kind of are bricks because of the Mount Branches popping themselves off. With that being said, it's alright right now, but once we get into the newer materials, we can start playing around with the ratios a little bit more. Ragged Boots, or Silent Boots, excuse me, whenever you have it in the graveyard, you can banish it, and you can actually grab a Phantom Knight spell or trap card and get it onto the field. So, yeah, very awesome. And last but not least, we have 2 copies of Rescue Fairy. This is my little tech card for the deck. As long as you have a Link monster on the field and open Link zones that it points to, Rescue Fairy is a very awesome normal summon. Basically, you shuffle them back into your deck, and then you allow the special summon monsters onto the field whose levels equal 6, which is actually very awesome. Since the majority of your deck is level 3 monsters, any 2 monsters can actually come out then. Again, they have to be to zones that the Link monster points to, but we have Cherubini as well as Rusty in the action deck that can open up those bottom right, bottom left zones that can help you out in those particular situations. The effects are negated, so you don't have to worry about the Mount Branches popping themselves off, so you can actually go into other plays. And all in all, this guy does his job, and he does it well. That's it for the monsters. On into the spells. 3 copies of Allure of Darkness, consistency card. Draw 2 cards, banish a Dark Attribute monster you don't need. Foolish Burial, because in a deck that needs to send monsters to the graveyard, you want to be sending monsters to the graveyard. 2 copies of Mass Change 2. This card came out just right after the Duelist Alliance set that introduced the Burning Abyss archetype into the game. And this card was insanely hyped back then, and it still works now, primarily because when it has a discard effect, which means sending Burning Abyss monsters to your graveyard as a cost to get effects, which is awesome. And it can turn any of your on-field Dark Attribute monsters into masked heroes like Darklaw or even Anki, which is actually very awesome. Next up, we have 2 copies of Twin Twisters. I find Twin Twisters works very well in this particular build, primarily because you're going to be popping off cards off of your opponent's back row, and getting an additional effect by singing a Burning Abyss is always worth it. And one more card, Upstart, for a little extra boof in seeing different cards. Going into the traps, I do run 6 traps. We have 3 copies of Dark Sacrifice. Dark Sacrifice is an awesome trap card. Whenever your opponent activates a card or an effect that will destroy cards on your field, you can negate that and then send a level 3 Dark monster from your deck to your graveyard, allowing you to set up plays for your Phantomites, or even being able just to get a Burning Abyss monster into the graveyard for its effect. Very awesome card. Very useful, especially now that Heartbeast Feather Duster is in the game alongside Lightning Storm. And then last but not least, 3 copies of Phantom Knight's Fogblade. I love running Fogblade in this deck primarily because it's just an awesome negate. Banishing Silent Boots to get this card out of the deck and onto the field is primarily the epic reason, and with Rusty you're going to be able to get 2 copies of this card on the field even faster, which means multiple negates holding your opponent's cards down. They can't really do anything, and it's just an awesome card in general. That's it for the main. On to the extra. I'm going to start off the links, and of course, Rusty Bardiche of the Phantom Knight. Oh man, this guy is so welcome. Once per turn, you'll allow to send a Phantom Knight card from your deck to your graveyard to set a Phantom Knight spell or trap card from your deck to your field. Very cool. Sending Silent Boost can get you 2 Fogblades. If you summon a Dark Xyz monster to a zone it points to, you can target one of the cards on your opponent's field, destroy it. And depending on the card, you can actually make it into 2 pops. So he does his job. He does it well. The only thing about it is that once he hits the field, he isn't leaving the field because you can't link him off. But hey, gotta take what you get. We have 2 copies of Cherubini. Cherubini takes any 2 level 3 monsters, which is awesome. You can send a monster to the graveyard to power boost another Burning Abyss monster that's on the field, so it gets its job going and it can start setting up a lot of different plays. Okay, we got the Nightmare package in here. Nightmares are very good in the Burning Abyss primarily because of the discard effect. Again, more discarding cards means more setting up a graveyard to do more things. And ultimately, targeting back row or spinning any card off the field, definitely worth it in this deck. And last but not least, for the links, Borosaur Dragon for the OTK potential. What can I say? Just being able to cut one of your opponent's monsters in half and swing twice, always worth it to have in your deck. For the rank 3 plays, we have the Phantom Knights of Breaksword. Breaksword, detaching material. You pop a card off your opponent's field. Very awesome. Using Ragged Gloves, you can actually be able to power boost this up to 3,000 attack. So definitely consider power boosting your monsters with Ragged Glove a little bit more because it's definitely going to help out those monsters in the long run. Another card, basically any 2 fiend monsters can create DDD Stone King Darius. Stone King is in this deck primarily because during battle phase, and when it battles one of your opponent's monsters, you can attach a material, and then it basically renders this card undestroyable by battle. And then if your opponent, and then you destroy your opponent's monster at the end of the battle phase and hit him with 500 effect damage, which is actually pretty cool. So he's actually worth a lot in this deck. We got Levier because we do have cards that can banish things out of the graveyard. We want to get him back onto the field to use him again, so Levier is definitely a good card. 2 copies of Dante, the Traveler of the Burning Abyss. Dante is the man. You can mill up to 3 cards from the top of your deck to your graveyard and gains 500 attack for each, which is actually very, very great. Power boosting up to 2,500. Goes into defense mode after the battle phase of the turn you use this effect, but hey, that's alright. And he gets you a monster from your graveyard back into your hand whenever he's sent, so definitely a good card to have. And of course we have Dante's love of his life, Beatrice, the Lady of the Eternal. A little backstory between Dante and Beatrice is basically Dante and Beatrice were madly in love. Beatrice got sick, she died. Dante kind of lost his way in his life. Beatrice, in the afterlife, found out about it. She arranged to have him take a little trip to hell to gain some perspective on life, and sure enough, it worked. Beatrice has this awesome quick effect that can send a Burning Abyss monster from your deck to your graveyard, and that can allow you to utilize a leak or Farfar during your opponent's turn, so keep that in mind. And of course, after beating a lightning, he becomes the Pilgrim of the Burning Abyss. If Beatrice is ever destroyed by battle or card effect, you get him on the field ASAP, and he has a 2000 attack point body to go along with it, so very cool. And of course, the mass change targets, I'm actually running 1 Anki and 1 Dark Lord. Now a lot of people will say, oh, you should run 2 Dark Lords. The thing about it is I find having Anki in the field kind of useful, since I'm not running Nightmare Shark. This card can take that place because it can attack your opponent's life points directly. Just half the damage, which is 1400 points. And if it ever destroys one of your opponent's monsters, you're getting the other mass change 2 from your deck to your hand, which is actually very awesome. So as long as you have that Dark Attribute monster on the field, you can always get Dark Lord on the field with it. And if Dark Lord's on the field, it acts as a one-sided macrocosmos. All of the cards your opponent sends to the graveyard are banished instead. And anytime they search, you're ripping a card out of their hand and banishing that as well. So it makes for a very nasty card to have against a lot of different decks in the meta. Guys, that is it for my PK Fire deck for the September 2020 format. I do hope you enjoy this. Guys, please use my build as a base for your builds if you don't agree with my particular deck choices or ratios. Be my guys to change it. Remember, your deck is your build. Make it your own way. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, make sure to subscribe, enable notifications so you don't miss any uploads. Check out the description box below. Find the links to my affiliates, tcgplayer.com as well as tcgplayer.com. Great resources for any Yu-Gi-Oh player. Follow me on social media, and if you guys want to help grow my community to even greater heights, the invite link to my Discord server is also in the description box below. Join the conversation. We'll love to have you. As always, guys, until next time. Peace!